Hello everyone and good afternoon. I'm Alex Clyde Tubianosa from Group 4 and now we will start our presentation. As we all know, earthquake is the movement of tectonic plates. It happens due to transferring of energy and waves, also commonly known as body waves and surface waves, from the mantle of Earth to its crust, the Earth's surface. Tectonic force or pressure is successively transferred and accumulated via stick and slip motions of rock blocks to squeeze the fault gauge and then forces exerted upon other rock block or plates. The superposition of such additional lateral tectonic force and the original stress gives rise to the real-time stress in crustal rocks. The GIF that we can see is what we call the convection current. It is the process that is happening inside the mantle of the Earth. Since tectonic plates has a jigsaw-like structure where it has boundaries, there are times when sudden release of energy occurs, where both blocks of rocks were rubbing against each other that causes waves to occur, resulting in natural disaster. Earthquake can be extremely violent or slightly calm, and they can only be seen using measuring instruments. The study of earthquakes is called seismology, where the magnitude and intensity of the earthquake is being measured, usually reported on the Richter scale. Whether both tectonic plates either move away from each other, or towards each other, or alongside, energy will be produced at the hypocenter and will then transferred towards the surface. Initially, fault lines can be found within or along the major boundary lines, but it can be also found somewhere far from the edges of the major boundary lines. Some spots within the tectonic plates were attacked continuously by the sudden release of energy, thus causing it to weaken over time. Both instances of earthquake, whether it happens along the edge or far from the edge, is still at a disaster level.
Hi, I am Beatriz D. Vizcarra and I'm going to discuss the causes and effects of earthquake.
Let's talk about causes for earthquake. Maraming causes ng earthquake pero pag-uusapan lang natin yung volcanic origin and yung tectonic origin. Volcanic origin, one of the main causes of earthquake is the volcanic eruption. It occurs when the earth crust breaks due to geological forces on the rocks and adjoining plates. Dito nag-occur siya dahil sa magma dahil nagkakos yung magma ng movement sa loob ng volcano dahil sa pressure ng magma, yung mga nasa paligid na lupa or rocks ay nagka-crack or gumuguho sa kadahilanan na gusto lumabas ng magma. Last October 13, very recent lang siya, yung PHIVOLCS nakapagtala siya ng 313 volcanic earthquake or yung mga pagyanig sa palibot ng Mount Bulusan sa may Sorsogon, and right now yung Mount Bulusan ay naka-alert level 1 siya. Next is tectonic origin. Earthquakes are the result of sudden movement along faults and plate boundaries. They account for most earthquakes worldwide and usually occur at the boundaries of tectonic plates. After the San Andreas Fault broke in 1906, causing the Great San Francisco Earthquake, American geologist Harry Fielding Reid developed the so-called elastic rebound theory to explain the tectonic earthquakes. So mamaya, yung theory na yon, which is yung elastic rebound theory, ay i-explain mamaya ni Ricardo. Sa mga nakaraang earthquakes, sa mga naitalang earthquakes, or galing sa data gathered, sa statistics, yung 7% nun ay galing sa volcanic origin, yung tectonic origin naman with 90%, and yung sa collapse of underground spaces ay 3%. The most harms and losses of human assets are caused by tectonic earthquakes. Now let's talk about effects of earthquake, ground failure, and indirect effect.
Ground failure yung pinaka-effect ng earthquake. So under na ground failure, merong surface rupture, ground subsidence, soil liquefaction, landslide, or yung rock falls.
Surface rupture is an offset of the ground surface when fault rupture extends to the earth's surface. Any structure built across the fault is at risk of being torn apart as two sides of fault slip past each other. Basically, ito yung pagbuka ng lupa. Napaka-importante ng fault mapping for civil engineers para ma-prevent yung pagtayo ng structure para sa mga lugar na possible yung surface rupture. Ground subsidence. Buildings that have experienced ground collapse may have moved, tilted, stretched, twisted, buckled, or experienced a combination of all 5 of these effects. Subsidence or settling of the ground is a common occurrence during an earthquake. So, ito yung paglubog ng lupa. Like for example, nagtimpla ka ng kape, naglagay ka ng coffee, ng sugar, ng creamer. So, ang tendency nun, medyo paumbok yung type after mong malagay yung tatlo. So, kapag nagkaroon ng movement, ang mangyayari, ma-flatten yung mga granules. Next is liquefaction. Earthquake motion can turn loosely packed, water-saturated soil to liquid. Liquefied soils loses its density and ultimately the ability to support roads, buried pipes, and of course, houses. Saturated soils, those where water completely fills the space between the individual particles, cause liquefaction. Liquefaction is a critical aspect of geotechnical earthquake engineering. So, mahalaga rin to kasi makikita rin siya sa soil profile. Bali, hinahanap din siya sa soil investigation report. And yung soil investigation report is an important legal document that is used as the basis for design of foundation or earth structures as well as their construction.
余震です。うわ、大丈夫ですよ。すげえ。大丈夫大丈夫。すげえな。そこは盛り上がっちゃったんだね。うおって。うわー。
気をつけて。まだ揺れてる、まだ揺れてる。揺れてる、まだ。まだ揺れてる。まだ揺れてる。まさか旅行先。
すげえずれてる。
これ割れたでしょこれ。
うん。おっすげえな、これ。
ずれてる。
Lastly, landslide. Strong earthquake ground shaking greatly increases the likelihood of landslide, where landscape is susceptible to these types of ground failure if the ground is saturated with water, particularly following heavy rainfall. The shaking will result in more landslide than normal. Earthquakes and volcanoes contribute significantly to the landslide hazard. Earthquakes create stresses that make weak slopes fail. Earthquakes of magnitude 4.0 and greater have been known to trigger landslide. Volcanic eruptions produce loose ash deposits and heavy rain.
Indirect effects, yun yung pangalawang effect ng earthquake. So, under nito yung tsunamis and yung fires.
Tsunamis are massive waves triggered by earthquakes or volcanic eruptions under the sea. Tsunami waves do not rise substantially in the depths of the ocean. However, when the waves go inland, they build up to greater and greater heights as the depth of the ocean declines. The speed of the tsunami waves is determined by the ocean depth rather than the distance from the source of the wave. So, yung tsunami, i-discuss din to ng another group. Aside from infrastructural damage, fires may occur as a result of earthquakes. Fires are frequently started by broken or damaged lines that spark when they come into touch with combustible household goods or structures. On the morning of April 18, 1906, a massive earthquake shook San Francisco, California. Though the earthquake lasted less than a minute, its immediate impact was disastrous. The earthquake also ignited several fires around the city that burned for 3 days and destroyed nearly 500 city blocks. The earthquake and fires killed an estimated 3,000 people and left half of the city's 400,000 residents homeless.
Good afternoon, classmates. I am Rafael Agito and I will be discussing the types and categories of an earthquake. To start this report, I will be discussing first the types of earthquakes. So the first type of an earthquake is a tectonic earthquake. This type of earthquake occurs when the Earth's crust breaks due to geological forces on rocks and adjoining plates. So these plates are capable of moving slowly and gradually. As you can see, there are 3 types of movements shown. The first one shown is the divergent boundary, where the plates are moving away from each other. Along these boundaries, magma rises from the Earth's mantle to the surface, eventually solidifying to create a new oceanic crust. Now, the second plate boundary shown is called convergent boundary, where the impact of colliding plates case the edges of one or both plates to buckle up into a mountain range or bend down into a deep seafloor trench. Lastly is the transform plate boundary, where natural or man-made structures that cross a transform boundary are offset, split into pieces, and carried in opposite direction. Now, moving on to the second type of earthquake is the volcanic earthquake. Any earthquake that results from tectonic force that occurs in conjunction with volcanic activity. So compared to tectonic earthquake, volcanic earthquakes are less prevalent. They typically take place before or after an eruption.
The buildup of pressure becomes unbearable and releases itself with a massive explosion, eventually resulting to an earthquake. The next type of earthquake is a collapse earthquake. Small earthquakes in underground caverns and mines that are caused by seismic waves produced from the explosion of rock on the surface. So this type of earthquake commonly occur near underground mines, also referred to as mine bursts. They are instigated by the pressure generated within the rocks. The last type of earthquake is the explosion earthquake. An explosion earthquake is a result of the detonation of nuclear and/or chemical device. So these are commonly known as man-triggered kind of earthquakes and represents the bigger impact on modern-day nuclear war. The wave that you see is the shock wave causing a tremor across the land. So the next part of this report is categorizing an earthquake. So we categorize an earthquake by its magnitude. So the earthquake magnitude is a measure of the size or amplitude of the seismic waves generated by an earthquake source and recorded by seismographs. So here we can see a table of the Richter scale. It shows the magnitude, description, what the earthquake feels like, and the frequency. So first is less than 2. It is described as micro, and normally only recorded by seismographs. Most people cannot feel them. It happens millions per year. And the next one is a magnitude of 3 to 3.9. It is described as minor, and some people feel them. Objects inside the building can be seen shaking. Its frequency is over 100,000 per year. Following that is a magnitude of 5 to 5.9, and it is described as moderate and can damage or destroy buildings not designed to withstand an earthquake. Everyone feels it. Its frequency is 1,000 to 1,500 per year. So skipping to a great 9.9 or 9 magnitude, described as the Great Earthquake, and it can severely damage most building. It happens 1 per 5 to 50 years. And lastly, it is a magnitude of 10. It is a massive one, and there are none of it recorded yet. And hopefully, there won't be one. So the last part of this report is a compilation video about the largest earthquakes ever recorded in history.
Number 1. The 1960 Valdivia earthquake. Various studies have placed it at 9.4 to 9.6 on the moment magnitude scale. It occurred in the afternoon on May 22nd, and lasted approximately 10 minutes. This was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded. The resulting tsunami affected southern Chile, Hawaii, Japan, the Philippines, eastern New Zealand, southeast Australia, and the Aleutian Islands. Number 2. The 1964 Alaskan earthquake, lasting 4 minutes and 38 seconds. The magnitude 9.2 megathrust earthquake remains the most powerful earthquake recorded in North American history, and the second most powerful earthquake recorded in world history. As a result of the earthquake, across south-central Alaska, ground fissures, collapsing structures, and tsunamis resulting from the earthquake caused about 131 deaths. 2 types of tsunamis were produced by this subduction zone earthquake. There was a tectonic tsunami produced in addition to about 20 smaller and local tsunamis. These smaller tsunamis were produced by submarine and subaerial landslides and were responsible for the majority of the damage. Tsunami waves were noted in over 20 countries. Number 3. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami occurred at 58 hours 53 minutes UTC on 26 December, with an epicenter off the west coast of northern Sumatra, Indonesia. It was an undersea, megathrust earthquake that registered a magnitude of 9.1 to 9.3. A series of massive tsunami waves grew up to 30 meters high once heading inland, after being created by the underwater seismic activity offshore. Communities along the surrounding coasts of the Indian Ocean were severely affected, and the tsunamis killed an estimated 227,898 people in 14 countries. The earthquake was the third largest ever recorded and had the longest duration of faulting ever observed, between 8 and 10 minutes. It caused the planet to vibrate as much as 10 millimeters. The 2011 earthquake off the Pacific coast of Tohoku, Japan, was a magnitude 9.0 to 9.1 undersea megathrust earthquake off the coast of Japan that occurred at 05:46 UTC on Friday 11, March 2011. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan, and the fourth most powerful earthquake in the world since modern record-keeping began in 1900. The earthquake triggered powerful tsunami waves that may have reached heights of up to 40.5 meters, and in the Sendai area traveled at 700 kilometers per hour. Residents of Sendai had only 8 to 10 minutes of warning, and more than 100 evacuation sites were washed away. The tsunami swept the Japanese mainland and killed over 10,000 people, mainly through drowning, though blunt trauma also caused many deaths. The latest report from the Japanese National Police Agency report confirms 15,899 deaths, 6,157 injured, and 2,529 people missing across 20 prefectures, and a report from 2015 indicated 228,863 people were still living away from their home in either temporary housing or due to permanent relocation. Early estimates placed insured losses from the earthquake alone at $14.5 to $34.6 billion. Number 5. The 1952 Kamchatka earthquake. The main earthquake struck at 16:58 GMT on November 4, initially assigned a magnitude of 8.2. The quake was revised to 9.0 in later years. A large tsunami resulted, causing destruction and loss of life around the Kamchatka Peninsula and the Kuril Islands. Hawaii was also struck, with estimated damage of up to $1 million in livestock losses, but no human casualties were recorded. Japan reported no casualties or damage. The tsunami reached as far as Alaska, Chile, and New Zealand.
Hello there, I am Ricardo S. Mayrina, and for the last topic, we're going to discuss about the earthquake mechanism theories. Paano nga ba nangyari ang mga pagyanig o lindol na nararanasan natin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo? At ano nga bang mga dahilan nito? What if I said that the rocks are not weak because the rocks are weak? The rocks are weak because the stress is strong. Sa inyong palagay, tama nga ba ito? Sabay-sabay natin niyang alamin hanggang sa dulo ng ating discussion. There are two well-known theories that discusses about the earthquake mechanisms. The first one is the plate tectonics theory, which is proposed by Alfred Wegener, and the other one is the elastic rebound theory by Henry Fielding Reid. Both theories explain how the Earth's crust moves very slowly, time to time, which even our scientists couldn't believe at first. And depending on how these plates or rocks interact with each other, have a huge impact on the Earth. Diving in more of the plate tectonics theory, Alfred Wegener proposed that the world's outermost mechanical layer, which is composed of lithosphere and asthenosphere, is constantly moving, reforming, and shaping itself through the interactions of the plates. He believed that these continents came from the existence of the supercontinent Pangaea, meaning all the Earth. And due to the continental drift, the plates are now separated into the known 7 continents of the world. The continental drift can be caused by 3 types of plate tectonic boundaries. As discussed earlier, these were the convergent boundary, where plates collide with each other and produces volcanoes and mountains. The next one is the divergent boundary, where plates move apart and where the seafloor spreading occur. And the last one is the transform boundary, where plates slide past one another. The ones that produces earthquakes are more likely the convergent and the transform plate boundary, because this is when 2 plates come in contact with each other and trigger vibrations from the release of energy or force.
Diving in more of the plate tectonics theory, Alfred Wegener proposed that the world's outermost mechanical layer, which is composed of lithosphere and asthenosphere, is constantly moving, reforming, and shaping itself through the interactions of the plates. He believed that these continents came from the existence of the supercontinent Pangaea. The next earthquake mechanism that we are going to learn is the elastic rebound theory, wherein the rocks at the edges of the tectonic plates experience stress, resulting to a degree of deformation also known as a strain. As shown in the analogy of the limber stick in the diagram, the stick is subjected to stress or buildup of strain until it ruptures at a certain amount or limit. This rupture produces energy as a strain is released from the stick. Same analogy can be used in a rubber band, but since the material is elastic, after its deformation, it will only go back to its original form. Like the three types of boundaries in the plate tectonics theory, there are also three types of directional stress in the elastic rebound theory. The first one is the compressional stress, which is quite similar to the convergent boundary, where the plates collide with each other. The next one is the tensional stress, similar to the divergent boundary, where the plates move away from each other. The last one is the shear stress, which is comparable to the transform boundary, where plates slide past each other. To deeply understand the process of elastic rebound theory, we prepared a roadmap for you. The first experience the rocks or the plates will feel is not love or care, but stress. It can be either compressional, tensional, or shear stress. After such amount of stress is received, rocks begin to deform or strain. However, its deformation depends on the rock's elastic behavior. If it's elastic, it goes back to its original form. If it's brittle, it breaks. And if it's ductile, the rocks will be deformed but it will not break. The fourth step is when the rock reaches its elastic limit, or the capacity of strain it can only hold. And when the stress exceeds that limit, the strain energy will be released through frictional heat or seismic waves, creating simply earthquakes. Then, the stress buildup resumes back to its starting point. To end this discussion, I think that this statement is not entirely correct. Rock's strength vary depending on its composition and location. For example, in Mohs scale, we categorize the rock's hardness or strength from weak to hardest. We must acknowledge our weakness in order to gain or know what is strength. When rocks were also subjected to stress, rock's reaction varied depending on its behavior. It can be elastic, brittle, or ductile. Earthquakes are produced by brittle deformation of rocks. When a rock is strained over the plastic limit, it releases the stored energy and creates an earthquake. There goes the relationship of stress and strain in the diagram shown.